Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor Brains V Brawn II. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here to talk about the finale. We are live. We have people in the chat. We're going to be taking your questions, so please put question so we can star that and look at answering that later on. And in this finale, three lovable guys, right? And I thought I got to get my three lovable guys on the podcast. Okay, that's the theme of the season. So first up, please let me welcome in my co-host for this podcast. He is the Kalin, well, the AJ to my Kalin, and that if I ever had to vote him out, I would cry and cry and cry and cry. It's a great Mike Bloom. Mike, thank you for being.
Yes, and much like Kalin declared, and which very much duped me later on when he ended up voting him out, you are my best friend. And maybe for one last time, Shannon, we will maybe assign out some members of a holy trinity onto this panel, because we did get one final thing from Miles. He did nickname himself what? Gigabrain, Master Manipulator, and Jungle Rat. So maybe we'll figure that out by podcast end as to who is whom.
You know, it's been a long season because we are grasping at the straws of comparison for these recappers, but have to bring in some special guests as well. We have all the recap bitches here. First up, Chappell, usually on a Sunday. We changed that around. Now it's a Tuesday for me, but a Monday. I don't know. Anyway, Chappell, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I thought that I was never going to get to say my opinion about the finale because, I was rotated out very early on. I guess I am the AJ here since I was not supposed to be in the final three, but I made it and I'm very excited to talk about what we just watched. Congratulations to our big winner.
Yes, well, we should start with that as well. Congrats, Miles.
Yeah.
Massive finale. And we have someone who I banned from the podcast 2 days ago, and he's still here. Why? I don't know. I didn't invite him, but here he is. Pooya, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. If you lie again, I will show them screenshots of your last message to me after we recorded that podcast.
Do it.
So it's up
Post
to
the
you.
receipt.
Oh, talk about taking hostages. You're taking DM hostages.
I said I really enjoyed the podcast, even though your cheesy points were dumb. Hot. And
Yes, one of us gave 3 points to the winner. One of us gave 3 points to someone who didn't make it to final tribal. But hey, who am I?
I think you have 3 points to Kalin. Neither of us gave 3 points to the winner. I don't know how to tell you that, but
I didn't give 3 points to Kalin.
I think you did.
No,
I gave him to Miles.
Pooya gave 3 points to Miles. Did you give 3 points to AJ, Shannon?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I did. As always.
Whoa,
And I stand by.
Right?
Get
Stand
out.
by. Did you? Okay, you have 3. Whatever. I don't even remember. The point is, it's the finale. Let's talk about the finale. Big congrats to Miles. And I thought a really fun finale because this relationship, this alliance of these three guys who never had a name. I asked Miles this morning. Crazy. This alliance was like such a core of the season from the very beginning when Miles is such an outcast and two people want to be there for him. They controlled the game. They dominated. They were every tenet of the game between them. And I thought like getting their episode, their finale between the three of them, it was so emotional. It was so incredible. It was a very different approach to relationships than the other big alliance of the Coven gave us through the season. And I thought that it'd finish it off with Miles's win and with this alliance being the cornerstone of the finale. I thought it was really interesting. Mike, what did you think of the finale?
I mean, listen, it's going to be very tough for me to not enjoy talking about a finale, especially of Australian Survivor, because I am a simp for the jury format, whether it be a final 2, final 3, the idea of all these people questioning, figuring out all the different pieces of criteria that they want to incorporate into their own vote for the winner is something that has kept me going in this show, going on 25 years. And while we are going to talk about this final 3 decision, which again, I'm a big dum-dum. I was pretty surprised by. I know that definitely in the edit, in retrospect, there was some bigger signs to the downfall of AJ, but still a surprising decision from my perspective. But leading into especially this final 2, we have been waiting, right, for the inevitable mask-off moment from Kalin, where he's like, you thought I was the golden retriever, but actually I was Cujo the entire time. Don't pet me. And it turns out that he was trying to come in, maybe overcompensating a little bit. You have Miles kind of undercompensating as a result of everyone kind of, pointing out his flaws as well. I thought it was a really interestingly crafted final tribal council where, again, if you look at the results of your season, Miles has a commanding lead, becomes a near unanimous winner here. But I think it kind of obfuscates a very interesting discussion to close out what was, again, despite maybe some of the final results, a really chaotic and intriguing endgame here on Australian Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, in a season of half measures, which I really think was one of the themes of the season, Kalin does make that final cut, but he does it at the point where he's already lost the game. Kalin, make the cut earlier. We'll talk about what Kalin could have done. Tough spot for Kalin as well, especially with Miles winning immunity at the final four. But Chappell, were you shocked here that Kalin made that decision and took AJ out of the game?
I won't say shocked, but I did not like how that happened. I thought, Kalin, you are burying yourself. You are digging a grave. To the idea that you are now going to stand up and talk to your three best friends that ever had, like you really had a sidebar at the top. You gotta be resolute. You gotta say, nah, this is the right move. You're over there like, I don't know what to do. If I'm he lost my vote in that moment.
I mean, to be fair, Shannon and I had a bit of a conversation about this because I was confused as to like, oh man, considering how big of a decision this had with Kalin on his mind, I wish that we had some time in between the immunity challenge and tribal council where it cuts back to him weighing his decisions. I don't know if they had any difference or time between immunity challenge and tribal council. So Kalin probably would have loved to do that without being in the company of the jury, but he basically had no other choice. He had to do the beach chat at tribal council.
No, you're making a decision alone. No one's making you get up. You say you get up. You say, none of you knew who I was. I've been lying to you the whole time. Now he's immune enough to do that. I think he should have stood up and talked about his game at the final three tribal council, even if he lost, because I think that
the other two got to as well. Like the other two were giving, like they both got to campaign before the vote went down.
Well, they campaigned for each other. They're boosting their resume, and he's like, I don't know.
Oh, you know what he should have done? He should have said, okay, can I talk with you two for a second? Put them in the corner, say, stay there or I vote you out, and then say, all right, everybody, now that it's just between us right now, let's talk about what I've got going on.
It's your boy K, baby. We got it. Yeah. No, this was incredible. The final three, Shannon, is just like, it was like Rachel's funeral all over again. Her eulogy that she did in our last season of US Survivor, where it's like, she spent this entire episode talking about how great she was and had everybody else talking about it. Miles is hyping up AJ. AJ is hyping up Miles. Meanwhile, Kalin's just sitting there letting it happen. I'm like, no, both of y'all suck. If it's me, I'm about to choose right now, and it's going to take me 3 seconds because I already know I'm choosing the person to take with me that I can beat. That person did not play a good game, and no matter what AJ is saying, he's wrong. But Kalin's out like, dang, you're right. You're kind of making a good argument.
He has to have one of the most unique celebrations, quote unquote, to a final immunity challenge I've ever seen, which is like not only breaking down into tears of like, it's not necessarily, exaltation. Oh my God, I made it to the final two. This is a dream come true. More so like, oh man, I got to stop being friends with one of these people. It was so sweet. This man is one of the most earnest people I've seen on reality TV in the past, 5 years.
Which also, it's a hard argument to then make, y'all perceive me as a golden retriever, but I'm anything but that. When the night before, you're here in tears of which one of my best friends am I going to cut? I don't know. Actually, can I talk to them in the corner, just us three once again, one last time? And I want to hug them both.
Yeah, and then Miles and AJ being like, "Do you want one of us to quit right now?" Like,
he was gonna quit.
You want us to make?
He was gonna quit.
Oh, I thought Kalin might have. If Kalin was not as big of a fan, there is a non-zero chance he would have been like, "All right, y'all,
I can't do this. I can't do it."
I think we all want to see AJ and Miles face off in the final two, right? They do us all a favor.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna make them scissors paper rock for it. I thought at that point, I'm like, we're literally getting the winner on a scissors paper rock.
Maria.
Firstly, a couple of things. The first part is he said that he never gets emotional when he saw his mom come down the path. 10 minutes later, he was crying and he never stopped, at voting out one of AJ or Miles. And I do agree. Yeah,
so we blame his mom is what you're saying. Because her presence was there, it got him in his feels. Everyone else just got the freaking best friends from home, and he gets his mom.
Yeah.
I think that he actively loves AJ more than his mom. I think that's pretty evident. I don't want to speak for Kalin.
No, I'll speak for him. He carried AJ after he outlasted AJ in the challenge. He came down off of his perch and grabbed AJ. I refuse to let you walk, brother. I was like, oh God, he's gonna vote him out.
I was also gonna argue, maybe it's less so that Kalin loves AJ more than his mom. I think AJ might love his mom more than Kalin. Did you see him macking a little bit on her? Like, your son is awesome. He did such a great job.
And you have beautiful eyes.
Can we talk about this? Because I felt like the glazing AJ was doing to Kalin to try and convince Kalin to vote, keep him in and vote out Miles. I almost feel like that was too much. I feel like here's my feeling, right? If I was gonna make a decision anyway, but then someone else is vocalizing the decision I was going to make more and more. I'm like, okay, they're going to get credit for this. I no longer want to do that.
Right.
I feel like everyone could see the way AJ is going to turn around the next night and be like, see, I made him do that. I made him cut Miles. Big mistake. So you can't do that at that point. I think AJ overdid it. He overcooked.
Yeah, I think he was worried because he put so much into Kalin at that point that he was like, again, trying to, like, AJ will think about, like, you know, trying to game it at every single point. But yeah, I mean, Kalin made the right decision. And fortunately, much like Baden, he was choosing between two people he was going to lose to, and he took $500,000 from his best friend. However, if it's like a, 1% chance against AJ, if that, and like a 2 to 4% chance against Miles, like, you take the chance against Miles. He did the right thing, but he did it at the point where the game was so far gone for him. And he also, as we said, it did it really badly, where that's the point where you don't let them credit each other. You are like, I'm not, like, start talking about the game. I'm not who you thought I was. And to show that, I'm going to shock you all and take out AJ. And I've been ruthless this entire time. Even in the final tribal council, he's apologizing, he's moralizing. It's like, no one's asking you to do that. Be more ruthless. Stop saying, like, because you all cut me, we're going to cut me, I cut you. No apologizing. They're not even asking you to do that. At that point, just be ruthless. Now, I felt like this was probably really shocking for the players. Mike, you said you were surprised. A lot of people said they were surprised. I wasn't surprised just by the edit. I really felt like AJ had such a clear losing edit, overdog downfall into Miles's like underdog win. And I felt like that for me, like the disparity of that, Kalin not being built up enough, Kate not being built enough, that edit is probably my biggest gripe. But I was shocked when Miles lost the challenge because I felt like Miles was going to win the show so much, and I didn't think Kalin would take him. So when he lost the challenge, I was like, what? So
that's what it was for me. I had Miles coming into this as like, okay, from an editorial perspective, he's probably the best winner pick from like a narrative angle.
Yes.
And so when he lost that first person to step up, I'm like, well, how the hell is he going to get brought here? Is he going to do like a Tony convincing Woo level move of somehow getting him to do it? Turns out he didn't necessarily need to, but yeah, I think maybe I sort of obfuscated the like AJ continuously saying that if he gets to the end, he's going to win, because he's been saying that the entire season.
Since day one.
And so,
so
it was less for me being like, aha, now they're really building it up, so it's not going to happen or else it spoils the ending. This guy, probably 3 months before he was cast, was saying that he's going to win this season. So I just thought it was yet another pulling the string on the AJ doll, and he says the catchphrase.
Yeah.
Can I say something courageous and bold and probably a little embarrassing for me?
Yes, definitely.
Of all the people in this season, and I really hate to admit this because I'm so sorry, AJ, but at no point was I rooting for AJ to win this game. Not that I was rooting against him, but there was always somebody ahead of him. When it came down to the final three, I was rooting for Miles, then Kalin.
Oh, he had a popularity shield. Someone was always more popular than him.
I never wanted him to win. But however, after this episode, AJ is my favorite player this season because him at the final tribal council being like, he channeled Shannon so hard. This man said, let me tell you why y'all both messed up. He said, he actually said, I'm about to tell you how you both have been trying to throw away this money, and here's how. Number one, it just started to go down. It was like watching Shannon. It was like he watched your podcast. It was like, no, you should have came over the top 2 weeks ago. And don't even get me started on. Like, I was just like, wow, he's really doing this. He does it to Miles, and then he's like, Kayla, baby, I'm so sorry, but it's gonna be worse for you. And I was like, wow. And his shield analogy of like, your thing about the shield is that you gotta drop them at some point and just start winning. He's not wrong. Nope. I don't believe in this. You have to take off the mask thing that everybody tries to do every season. Someone's like, I'm going to get to the end. And I'm just going to convince everybody who's been thinking one thing about me for 40 days. In one day, I'm just going to rip off the mask and they're going to be like, oh, you're right. No, people knew Marianne was a strategist when she got to the end. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they were like, Marianne, where'd you come from? Oh my God. They didn't know she had all these other trinkets.
Marianne just made a move a couple days ago. Like there was a little bit of reputation changing.
You gotta get there. Yeah, you can't just show up and be like, no. Y'all are all wrong. I'm smarter than all of y'all. You gotta believe me. AJ completely just destroys Kalin. And I don't know if AJ always does that. Maybe it's just because, like AJ is always just gonna be like he's Shannon. He just has to say the thing. But having AJ on the jury is really bad for Kalin, who did not play a great game at the end for somebody who was going up against two of the bigger players in the game. So yeah, I love him so much. The same way I love Shannon. AJ is my favorite character this season. I watched the season with a completely different lens now.
Pooya, do you want to defend this as someone who said Kalin just should try get to the end a couple of days ago?
No, I stand 10 toes on what I said, because to be very clear, I think that the move was, like AJ said in his thing earlier, you cut one of the shields out earlier. At Final Four, when both shields are still there, and the worry is that he could get fourth placed out, get to the final two at this point, because you already missed your exit earlier.
Yeah,
you missed it earlier. The window's shut now.
Let's talk about that, because I've been thinking about that a lot for Kalin. Like AJ is, and I was watching with Pete. I'm like, he is right though, right? So maybe he was channeling me, because I was like, he's spitting some facts right now, and it is true. And a lot of people are kind of misreading this, I think, watching the show, because I think people are like, Mars should win. He played the flashy game, and then some people are like, no, self-assess that. The flashier player shouldn't necessarily win, so Kalin should win. It's like, no. Here's why you're both wrong. Let me AJ this for a second. You self-assess that. The reason that Miles should win over Kalin is because Miles put himself in the proud position to win, and then Kalin didn't take him out. It's kind of similar to Rachel and Sam.
And Sam,
exactly. I mean, this was such a Rachel Lamont coded final tribal council, down to the question of, oh, you got a bunch of advantages. Should that be for or against the way that we analyze your game?
But the thing is, it was true for them as well. So it's a bit of a time loop. Okay, you have to think about it. But the thing is that Miles made mistakes that he can talk about in Final Tribal Council, but that's fine, because the whole point of Miles's game is the recovery. Miles made mistakes, and then he actually thrived in rallying past the mistakes to achieve his intended objective, which was sitting with anyone other than AJ. And because he achieved that, he's now running down here at Final Tribal Council. Kalin, unfortunately, did not achieve his objective. And when they're asking Kalin what his mistake is, when he's saying, what are your mistakes? What can Kalin talk about? And maybe we can talk about it, but it's
none.
Very hard,
thank you.
No, but it's very hard to talk about, because the mistake that he needs to talk about, the real mistake of his game. Kalin, what was your mistake in your game? I can't beat Miles. I'm sitting in an unwinnable position.
I'm sitting
where I cannot beat Miles. I
would have been sitting next to AJ. Yep.
Exactly. I couldn't beat him. I got to a final three in a very hard spot where I either read the jury wrong or I missed my chance. And we could talk about that for Kalin. And that's a really hard thing to talk about. And it's hard because it's a time loop. It's like, what's your mistake? My mistake is that I can't win. Okay, but no one's decided who's won yet. But when someone's in the pound position and you fail in taking them out, that's the failure. And that's what separates Miles from Kalin, whether it's a jury read, whether it's the opportunity, whatever it is, whether it's the fact that Miles wins immunity at the Final Four, Kalin is meant to win the immunities, protect the immunities, and he failed there. And maybe that's it for Kalin, that he lets Miles win at 4 in what was meant to be the way he protects. Maybe Kalin should look at Miles at the Final 6. Maybe it's that early when you know that Miles is probably going to have an idol at 5, and we're really going to try and look, it's really going to be blocked up. Maybe at the Final 5, it is showing up with a Zara and going for an AJ, but he left it to a fine point, and he left it to the 4, and then he did not achieve the objective of winning the immunity, and he got to a Final 3 with 2 people who would beat him. And I still maintain, Pooya, that at the point where Miles wins, he needs to risk a 2-1-1 to at least send Zara to fire with AJ, and you never know how that goes, and I will stand on it forever. But he did not win the game at that. He had lost the game from the Final 4.
Well,
when Miles
here's the thing.
challenged.
My whole argument was, you get to the final 2 and you sell your game to the best of your abilities. I think Kalin played a very underrated game. He has broken records, like has been mentioned. But I think Kalin...
but Miles broke 6 records, according to AJ.
That's true.
AJ made
their records. Historically,
one record was most time on the bottom.
Most time at the bottom. He spent the most rounds.
You show me that on the Wiki article. Here's the thing. I think Kalin gets the final 2, okay? And I think he also, not only did Miles kill the final tribal council, Kalin biffed it. I'm sorry, but when you are asked what could you change about your game and you say nothing, you then also this argument of my game is more repeatable, that should be rewarded. No, then that means we don't vote you and the next person comes along and does what you did and maybe they win. I feel like there were a couple of arguments made in there that I didn't quite love, especially when people were looking for something more exciting. I feel like Kalin also was lacking, in tone. I feel like there was not enough passion in the way he was speaking. And for me, you look at some of the best performances at a Final Tribal, especially, I see people talking about Christy. I always mess.
Which we should also mention. People were like, the mask off moment worked before. That was not a isolated incident. It also came at the cost of Lee Carsadine tanking his game entirely by staking it on honor
That's
and
what I'm
integrity.
saying. Miles nailed it. Lee
That
did
was
not.
my point. That's what I was saying. Is you're relying on someone screwing up, which isn't a
Shannon,
sure bet.
it was better when Pooya said it. Pooya, go ahead.
You're agreeing with me. That's my point. That was
my point. Is what I was arguing that night, Shannon, is that what I'm saying is not. It has a very small success rate. It has a very small, but it's also Shannon. But it's also doable. And also, you don't know until you're in that moment. I think Kalin finds himself in that moment. He thinks he can do it, right? He thinks he can do it. There are some things in life where you're not going to know if you're capable or not until you go to do it. Then you'll know. Then you see your answer. It's a gamble of a 500K, but also he could just be fourth. He could just be fourth and not be there. So, like I said, he should have gotten rid of him earlier. Doesn't do it. He gambles on himself and he fails. We've also seen people gamble on themselves and succeed. Kalin, unlucky. He went in, he put all on red, black turned up on the roulette.
But he also he also claimed that there is no luck in the game as well. So that's
which is crazy.
Which is
well, to be fair, can I just say a small point on that is that when Karin is calling his good hands, his allies and immunity wins, I'm like, no, that's not a good hand. He earned all anyway.
Good hands. He played on Champions vs Contenders, got voted out second, but maybe not such a good hand. So anyway, so when it comes to because I think Kalin's opening argument I really enjoyed.
He cooked. Paulie was clapping. Paulie was like, okay.
He was cooking. And here's what it comes down to for me is that, like, I've seen people be like, Kalin was overblowing his game. He needed to be more humble. There were definitely answers that he got wrong. I think it always is going to come down to this time in and time out, every single Survivor season. My favorite thing about the jury format is the fact that every single jury will be incredibly different, and they are going to value incredibly different things.
Yes.
Kalin's argument about the repeatable dynamic, I see where he's coming from, and this is something that the community does when we're ranking winners. There are a lot of people who will say, okay,
well, Boston
versus Kim, you run him 100 times. Who are you going
Who's the better player? Right.
And so I can understand where he's coming from. Basically, I'm going to throw a lot of C's your way right now. A lot of C words, but not from that variety. Kalin was
trying, but please.
Exactly. I'm just trying to get into the mood here. Kalin, in his speech, was preaching consistency and control. Yes. That is what he staked his game on. That is not what this season was about. This season was about chaos, both creating and controlling the chaos. And that was not Kalin's game. Kalin was somebody that was able to come forward. And that's what this comes down to at the end of the day. Fundamentally, no matter where you come from, no matter what the game you've played for a month and a half is, no matter what, you are going to vote for somebody that you feel the best about from the variable options, going to bed saying, you are the winner of our season. In some cases, that means representing whatever this season was up to this point. We'll talk about it later. This season was absolute mayhem where people were just taking big swings from the jump. That was not Kalin's game. Kalin's game could be prided more on another season. If Kalin had sat next to, I even say like some of the Brawn guys that got taken out pre-jury, I think
almost every.
By default, he would sort of get more of that moniker of like, look at the adamant moves that you were making. Here, this was not the type of season for that type of gameplay to be the emergent one. It was definitely stuff to get him to the end, but the stuff that Miles was flaunting, although a lot more flawed in the end, was flashier, and this was a jury that by and large prided the flashiness and the audacity to pursue these moves.
I don't agree. I mean, when we talk about what winners are repeatable, we're talking about what wins are repeatable. Like Kalin's pathway was repeatable to get to the end, but very, very hard to win. Well, not very hard. There was a pathway to win, but not super easy win because he has to sit next to the right people. Now, as good as his argument is, I still think against AJ or Miles, it's a really, really tough path. If he's sitting next to maybe someone like a Zara or a Morgan, at that point, maybe it's possible. But
and he could have.
But he had the Marianne game, but he didn't make like the Oma move early enough because he either missed his chance or he misread the jury. Like all of these things are fatal flaws. So I think that is the issue, is that it's not really a winning pathway a lot of the time. So I think that was the issue that he, and again, like he then has to like wear that at tribal council, which is a really tough thing to wear because it's legitimate.
Well, it's two different arguments. They're saying who should be the sole survivor of this game. Kalin is talking about repeatable games. That's how we discuss who is a better player. Can they do it ultimate, like more than one time? You can be a better player and I can still beat you. We've seen that a bunch of times. Like the best player does not always win Survivor. It's the person who won the Survivor this season. So Kalin might be a better player than Miles, but Miles beat him, and that's okay. If Kalin plays 800 times, he might get to the final two every time. But if Miles beat
But
him
how many
once,
times will he win at the final two?
exactly.
That's a big
If Miles
thing
beat
as
him
well.
once, then Miles won. Exactly. So it doesn't like winning Survivor does not make you inherently a good Survivor player. Winning Survivor doesn't make you better than the people that you sat next to. You just won, and that's all that. And so I feel like he was arguing the wrong thing.
I
But
also think that
his
he made. I mean, we'll talk about riding dragons. He also made this sort of Dragon Slayer argument at one point as well, right? Of like, AJ was the best player this season, and I defeated him. Does that not make me the best player of the season? Using this like Elder One logic, and it has worked. It has worked in the past. Survivor South Africa. Hell, we just saw this arguably in Survivor 43 of like whoever takes down the final boss is the one that gets all the bonus points at the end. But it just shows this is not always going to work every single time. Ironically enough, it's not a repeatable argument to make.
No.
Well, because what do those things have in common? Is what the final three was when Jesse was taken out. Oh, that's a much easier argument because again, there's more stakes in that. I think that Zara can make that argument if she takes out Miles and sits next to Kalin. And Kalin can maybe make that argument if he taken out AJ and he was sitting next to Zara, but it's really, really hard against Miles. So I think that this jury as well, as we say, different juries, I've been saying this whole time, this is a very strategic jury. The jury were like offended anytime anyone, including like me in interviews at Jury Villa, were like, what were the emoji? Like, would the Coven vote for you as an it's like, no, it wasn't about the personal relationship.
I mean, to be fair, watching those Jury Villas, I think a lot of us were banking on a lot of emotions coming out on.
Well, it's not about it's not about that. It's about the way that they see themselves and the way that Logan says game recognizes game. It's like, we are a jury of gamers. It was always going to be on game. It was always going to be kind of on strategy. And I think that did make this jury, kind of readable. I mean, where do we see like for Kalin, Pooya in his final tribal council, where did you kind of see pros or cons at what he was doing here?
Well, I think it's one of those things where this could be a fun game to play on an off season where you just have someone remove the name of the Survivor player, just keep their resume, and then present one of them to a podcaster, present one to the other, and have them build that case up. Because I think there's a lot of things to like.
Isn't it how you should optimally apply for a job where you provide like the blank resumes and you wipe out the name in front of it?
I want to play that game. That sounds so fun.
Because I think you look at Kalen's resume, there's a lot of things you can argue here that are good. I'm sorry, it's a 47-day season. The man's name was written once. Like, that is huge.
Yeah.
I think breaking the record for most immunities, also huge. Being in a situation, I think not enough people know how to advertise this as a move itself, which is, there's chaos, there's flashiness, but when everything's working for me, why should I do anything to rock it? Why should I not take, yes, it's a game of control and chaos, like Mike said, but when coasting is available to me, why not take that? Why not take that and let everyone else spin their wheel so I can collect the check at the end? I think there's a lot of things he could have said, so which is why I think that for me, that was his biggest flaw. But number one was him acting like he played the perfect game. I didn't like that at all. I think having some humbleness and being willing to look at some of your shortcomings is good. I think once you realize the writing on the wall is that the jury's looking for a little bit of flash, a little bit of pizzazz, maybe mention that, I think there were routes where I took a little bit of an easier one. I stayed with an easy vote because it was working for me. Maybe I should have done a little more to bring people's attention over to me. Because I think the minute AJ says, all you did by bringing 2 shields to the end was make sure no one's looking at you, which is bad for you right now because no one knows what you're doing.
I agree. But I don't think he has the moment to speak to. I think that Shannon's right. He did not play the game that he could speak to at the end, because when he gets to the end and he says, like, I played exactly how I wanted to, everything acted perfectly. Then you were wrong. Then you should have bobbed when you weaved a long time ago. In his mind, he incorrectly saw himself as number 2 in this pecking order of 3. He saw AJ as the big dog, and then him, and then Miles in order. So if I sit next to Miles, I will win. So he could coast. He could coast as long as he ended up next to Miles and not AJ. That was a winning strategy for him. Now, he was wrong because Miles had outflanked him by then, and he just didn't know. He was arguing something that if he's correct, then he wins. You think AJ is going to sit there and talk about the flaws in his game if he gets to the final 2? No. AJ is going to say, I controlled this game since the merge, and let me tell you how. And then he's going to go down the list and talk about how each of y'all threw away $500,000. And no one's going to say, like, he should have been more humble. He should have done XYZ, because it would be true. The thing with Kalin is that he was speaking on something like AJ said, you're actually incorrect. You took us to the end saying we're your shields. We're only your shields because we're bigger than you. If you're sitting next to someone bigger than you, then you will lose. It doesn't matter if it's strategically, if it's socially, if it's advantages. He's saying I only received 1 vote. Well, sir, you were immune 8 rounds. So yeah, of course you only received 1 vote.
And this is also like, I remember this is actually an argument from like the Edge of Extinction final tribal council where it was made of like, well, Gavin didn't get any votes against him the entire season, and it's like people could also turn it into, well, that's because we didn't really consider him because we didn't care because we were fine going to the end with him.
Yeah, and Miles does very, very well at claiming and owning that, how he would take the heat. And I do think if whether you're a Rachel, whether you're a Miles, if you are a target and a shield and the big, loud name, if people can't get you out, and if people have like tried to get you out or should get you out and then don't, especially with Rachel when they tried, but like, that is a flaw of the person next to you, because it's like you've tried and failed and he can't speak to that, because Miles is the perfect situation. If you can speak to mistakes you've overcome, that was like, sorry about that, and I can still be humble. But that was yesterday's problem. But Kalin has to speak to a mistake he's still wearing today. His mistake was that he either didn't think he needed to get rid of Miles, and Miles said in the exit this morning, I will speak to Kalin later, that Kalin maybe thought he could beat both. So you either have a fatal misread of the jury, or you missed your chance, you didn't win that immunity, you didn't take the shot early enough, your pathway was wrong. These are fatal mistakes. Miles made mistakes he recovered from. AJ and Kalen's whole end game is constructed wrong to put him in the wrong spot. So at that point, what can he speak to try be a little bit humble? Because he can't say, well, the mistake in my game is I can't win right now, because true, but unfortunate. And let's not claim that. I think maybe the best he can do is this was an intentional strategy, but there were pros and cons. There were drawbacks to the fact that you didn't see my game and maybe I hit it too well. And then when he was talking about, when they asked about like big moves and stuff, I would really lean into the perception. It was like, the mistake is maybe that I didn't show it to you well enough because I had to hide it, but it was intentional. And then it becomes, well, what are the big moves? Big moves. You didn't know who I was. 47 days as a different person. I was talking to JLP in the challenge, telling him not to blow up my spot. That's a big move. Point. A 47-day act, and I fooled you all. That's the move, I think.
Well, I think another one you can name, which I'm sure he did. I'm sure there was a lot left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, exactly. You have to say that as well.
Name something explicit. Okay. Logan immediately comes to me and tells me that she has an idol. Hey, Laura, the reason why you're sitting on the jury right now, hey, Logan, the reason why you had to use that idol, that's because of me.
Yes.
I leaked that information. I was the one to make it happen. It's that idea of specifics to be associated. We got a lot of vagaries out of this edit with Kalin. And I think, to go back to the question you asked, Pooya, I think one of the best things he did outside of the opening statement was honestly less so about talking up his game and talking down Miles. When Miles is like, oh, I think actually my social game is a little underrated right now. He's like, remember when you walked your dirty, nasty ass feet through Kate's spaghetti?
That part, you weren't good socially. He should have dunked on Miles. Listen, I don't think there's anything he could do to hype up his game, because AJ is on the jury telling everybody he did not play the great game that he thinks he did. So it's like you trying to argue in this like hour-long period, and AJ been sitting at them with Ponderosa or at Jury Villa all day telling them like, hey, he really screwed up. And you got to believe there's no world where AJ was just sitting on that information. That was not the first time those people had heard AJ dissect that game. You cannot pay. There's no money in the world that would make me believe that AJ just sitting there quietly on that. So you can't outdo AJ, but you can outdo Miles. I would go full for the Miles. There's a reason why you're at the bottom. It's because you're not good socially. That is a flaw in your game. You had to find those advantages because people don't like to play around you. People love to be around me. I'm lovable. I'm Kalin. You know what I'm saying? Like I think you have to focus on that, because when you say, what are the flaws in your game? The flaw in my game is that I didn't tell y'all all the crap that that Miles was talking about y'all. The flaw in the game is that I let Miles come after y'all, and I should have took Miles out. I would have rather sat by some people that I respect instead of Miles, the jungle rat. Like, pull that out of them. Pull that hate that they have for Miles out of them and be like, vote with me. A vote for me is a vote against Miles. But no.
Kalin, you know what he should have done? Actually, you want to know a big move? He busts into Video Village, into the edit bay, pulls out the montage we just saw 15 minutes earlier when everyone was yelling at Miles throughout the game of screwing stuff up. And like,
don't you hate this guy?
Do you remember this? Remember this guy? Remember how he made you feel?
Especially
we don't call him the jungle rat because we love him. We call him jungle rat because he was a rat. Look, y'all gonna vote for the rat?
Well, especially because I feel like, from a very tough spot that Kalin came into here, I think he did a lot of things well. Again, like taking Miles in a tough spot is the better choice because of a couple of things. Like, yes, Miles has bigger gaps to exploit. I think he does it really well with Kristen, where it's like, I have had the two pillars better. Exploit those social gaps 100%, and he did part of that well. I like him talking about how, like, he had gained and then kind of half lost poorly. I think a lot of that was good. And I think that in ways that he like had like a pretty comprehensive stats-based approach to like the way he'd approached his game, especially in the opening statements, that I think were really, really good. But another thing that I think was good about taking Miles over AJ is that he had done so much with AJ that if he'd gone in with AJ, he's just going to be AJ's beta. There's nothing different.
He's number 2 guaranteed.
Yeah, other than he could have spoken about this, about saving Miles pre-swap and really
Make
vouching
Miles
for AJ
3.
post-swap.
Yes.
Yeah, but I do think as well, separate yourself and AJ, because AJ's gone from Miles. A lot of it was about the trio. Kalin and AJ did a lot. Be like, Miles is on the bottom. Like,
Miles
what
was not
decisions was
with
he
us.
making?
Yeah.
Me and AJ socially had so much control, and AJ did a lot of that. But Logan's the main one. Logan, do you understand? You were mad at me for these little things. I told him about your idol. You didn't even know. He needed to be way more ruthless. He's apologizing. You didn't even know how I was stabbing you in the back. Kristen, the berries, all of that. I brought you in and I cut you. I'm a completely different person than I think. I still love you. I'm still a nice person, but my game is completely different to what you think. And he needed, because it was such an extreme way to play the game, and it was such a long shot, especially at this point next to Miles. And I really don't think any argument beats AJ or Miles here. But I think while he did a lot well, the better argument, I think, is being even more extreme on this like Hail Mary pass of this completely unique way that he's approached the game as the active Kalin that we were hearing about. And can I tell you the worst part about it is that I edited Paulie out in the X interview out of an abundance of caution, because Paulie was like, I can't believe these things I'm seeing about Kalin on TV. And I edited that out of the X interview because I was like, I don't think it sounds like Kalen's going to give the chance to tell him that before it gets to television.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. I'm like, but why is Paulie finding out on TV? Find out it's Final Tribal Council Kalin. That's my point. Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about maybe what Kalin and how he went wrong in how he pitched himself to the jury. But let's talk up Miles here. Much like Miles doesn't do as much in Final Tribal Council, because this guy is from the Todd Herzog school of glazing a jury. And listen, there's a lot to say about this cast of colorful characters, but there was a lot of egocentricity going on. There was, even from the early days of the Coven, right? It was like, well, this is not what I want with my plan, so I don't know if I should want to carry forward with it. And so he does what is so tricky to do, but works almost every single time you're able to pull it off, which is basically him coming hat in hand, right? And being like, yeah, I screwed up. You were able to excel in these categories. I learned from you. You gave me advice that I was able to bring into my own game. So in a way, if I'm winning, it's due to you all helping me. In a way, we're all winning.
We did this.
I just thought it was such an incredible way for him to, and again, especially butted up against Kalin, perhaps overcalling his shot and saying that he didn't make any mistakes in the game. Here comes Miles being incredibly realistic and sincere about the fact that while he loves the game that he played at the end of the day, he does admit that it has its flaws, and he is not someone that is going to mince words and say it is anything but flawed.
Yeah, I think to me, and this is an analogy that fits for what we just saw, to me, Miles is the person who studied for the test, and he goes in, and some of the questions he can remember immediately. Some of them he has to think for a second, and then he can make the words fit the description that the question is demanding. Whereas for Kalin, I felt like he memorized the book, and then he went to the test. The question does not match the answer that he's memorized, but he's copy pasting from his mind the answer he read on the book. It's like it can fit, but it's not tailor-made to the question specifically. And I think that was the biggest difference and the biggest flaw. Miles is someone who loves this game. You can tell he loves this game, and he understood this jury very well. I think for me, mentioning that, hey, I'm not 100% perfect, but everything that I was able to patch up was because you told me to do that. And I took that and I listened. I think that's huge. That is huge.
Yeah, because I think if he's trying to, again, if he's trying to bring it back to like, no, I made relationships, I had this social game, that's also a great way to do it as well. Of like, no, I know that you yelled a lot of things at me and about me, but I was listening and I was incorporating that in at the end of the day. I think it's a great way to say, yeah, we were on a rocky road, but at the end of the day, I am not here without you and what you were able to help me do.
Yeah, Juicy J brings it up in the chat that one of Miles's core tenets was his resilience, right? And being at the bottom. And I think that the people on the jury all have that in common. These three ran the game from the merge, basically. And so from there, they've all been on the bottom. They all know how it feels to go over to Miles and be like, yep, welcome. So they've all felt that. So from their point of view, if he was on the bottom this whole time, this is a person who was at the bottom who worked his way to the top. And that's a better story than I was always at the top. This is exactly what I wanted to do. And despite whatever y'all think, I still won. You know, it's like I deserve to win. It's like, no, they can each sympathize. Paulie knows what it's like to be at the bottom. Paulie was at the bottom the entire game as well. He's like, yeah, Miles was with me. And there were definitely times where it was just like me and Miles kicking it. Logan at the bottom with Miles. Zara at the bottom with Miles. So they all have that relationship with them. Whereas with Kalin, they kind of get like, oh, I'm really nice. I make you coconuts. I do that. It's like, no, I don't know you like that to be voting for you over Miles, who I was in the trenches with Miles. You know what I'm saying? Like Miles making it to the end is like me making it to the end. Whereas Kalin making it to the end was like AJ's number 2 making it to the end. And that's not the same. That's not a person who's going to get my vote.
Yeah,
I love this so much from Miles.
Literally, I feel like this season showed it at every corner, with the exception of Morgan, who, by the way, isn't on the jury. With the exception of Morgan, Miles courted everybody and listened to as many plans and thoughts and, talked about potentially doing something, whether he did or didn't. I think there's something to be said about that. Whereas Kalin may have done it a little bit as well, but I feel like Kalin always was a little too honest for his own good anyway. It was like when someone's like, oh, that could happen versus, yeah, I hear you, but no. I feel like that could happen. The door open shows that you're more willing to hear someone out. And I think that's important.
And Miles did take that swing at AJ. If you're going to say that AJ is the big dog and Miles was one of the people who was willing to go after it, Kalin was not, so it's like, yeah, I voted for AJ. I wanted him out. I identified that he was a big threat and that I needed to get him out in order for me to win. Kalen's like, yeah, like I can get him and Miles out eventually. He's like, nah, I've been took the shot, So Miles was even in their position as they all want AJ out. They want the big dog out, and Kalen's the one standing in the way of making this big flip happen. Miles is the one who got to actualize what they really wanted to do, or at least try to. He was the embodiment of when I get a chance to shoot, I'ma shoot. And for Kalin, it was like, you got 1 bullet and 2 people to shoot at. Yeah. And you only was able to shoot at 1.
But also, to be fair, AJ is right in that, Miles doing that was a bad bet on Zara, and the reason that Miles ends up winning is because he has that other threat, which is what I've been saying the whole time, to paint as the bigger threat in AJ, which is something he didn't want to do. He tried to take out AJ. He failed, and it was the wrong path. It was like he succeeded by failing, but the reason that Miles can speak to that is because AJ's gone, because he recovered, and that's the Miles game. Was that a wrong path? Sure, but then he's going to win the immunity. Even beyond idols, I'm going to find a way to be safe, and I'm going to win when Kalin should not let me win, and that's been his whole game, but I win that key challenge. And then he did worse in this challenge than I thought he would, and he comes last in the challenge, but he still is able to get Kalin away. Kalin makes the right decision for him, but he still has that other out. Miles's game is recovery, and that's a perfect game to speak to. And I really want to talk about the way he connected, as we've said, about being on the bottom with everyone who's been on the bottom. He's like, imagine that, but just 10 times more. And we've spoken about this in Survivor history, and I know it's something that I've learned to give more grace on. I'm looking at Karishma in 39. It's like, why isn't she making the good decisions? Because this is horrible. This is a horrible situation for her.
It's emotionally devastating because you have to live in this environment 24/7 where it's like, these people don't like you and they don't want to work with you. Good luck sleeping next to them. And
for Miles, he was making good decisions, but how hard is that situation? And we need to talk about this because a lot of people are upset. Even Logan talks about Jury Villa, about the optics, or it's like the all the women in Paulie for this all-male final 3. And I see it, and it is upsetting. And Australian Survivor is now evening up, has completely evened up the stats that we had on parabolic women. We had the parabolic men here on male winners versus female winners. But you know what Australian Survivor has always been worse at than the gender divide, which actually used to be a better gender divide for women on the success rates. Australian Survivor has always been terrible on diversity. And the anti-Asian bias that exists in global Survivor, at least across the US and Australia, that exists in Australia, and the way it manifests in Australian Survivor has been a blight on the show for a long time. There are too many examples to name, and I'm not going to sit here listing them, but the way some people have been treated, the way that people are ostracized, way overcame that to come to the final 5, and Miles wins here. So we have to look at the representation and how important it is. When I feel like Miles was badly treated, they called him dish boy, let alone everything else, and he was an outsider from day one. And yes, was he annoying people? And Kalin speaks to it, and it's valid and legitimate, and it's also alongside being othered when there is no diversity initiative and when the representation is so bad. And I think Miles does wear a lot of that. And I think he overcame that, not just in the game, clearly from success, but emotionally to even be playing this game. And I think that is absolutely incredible, that the story of the season becomes Miles' story within all of that. And that he finds his people. He finds his people in one of the most close and beautiful alliances I've ever seen, where this is an example of non-toxic masculinity of men crying and carrying each other and consoling each other when you voted me out and hugging each other. Like, it's so incredibly beautiful that that's the story of the finale of the season and of Miles's win. And he finds his allies and he finds his jury votes, and that's the story. And for this season, it's incredible. And for the history of Australian Survivor, it does not cure the wrongs of the past, but damn, is it a great start. And I think when we're looking at the three men at the end, the first back-to-back male winners in Australian Survivor, men of color. This is
not only men of color, but like I would not say Ferris and Miles are the representation of what people might perceive them when they see their what they've got below the belt. I think that Miles is somebody who is incredibly empathetic, and that's something that I think he's able to appeal to in his jury argument. I'm talking about his penis, but it's this idea that
thank you. I was not sure. I was unsure.
We were like, you talking about dick, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it's this idea that he was able to appeal to a very core idea that a lot of people felt in this particular season, right? Again, much like Survivor 47, this was a season where a lot of people felt on the top and a lot of people felt on the bottom, and I think Miles was able to say, again, speaking to the core tenet of the season, like, understand how you felt in that moment. You felt devastated. You felt like you just wanted to pack it up and go home. Imagine how I felt. And what Miles, I'm assuming, was able to mask in that moment. And I think he does have a genuine passion and enthusiasm for the game that also, I think, helped buoy him in those moments and helped him get through even those worst times that, like, listen, I might be going through the shit right now, but I'm playing this game that I've wanted to love. But the fact that he was still able to get through it, to say, to your point, Pooya, like, they may hate me today, but they might hate me a little less tomorrow. And that's what I could take advantage of. That is so incredibly admirable. And, like, Survivor does not apply to life, unlike what Lex said in Survivor All-Stars. But I was legitimately touched by Miles saying after his win, like, what I was able to do from day 1 to day 47 is something I will take into my life. This idea that, like, yeah, there may be tough times I'm going through, and let's face it, hateful, bigoted people out there. At the end of the day, the Miles beats the Kent. And I think that's incredibly proper. And
Ratty's the snake, maybe? Is that's not what it ends up? Well, I guess Paulie was
Ken was the praying mantis, so maybe this is more
so the snake eats the rat who eats the praying mantis, and that's that order.
Exactly. Circle of life. But I think that Miles being able to speak to that also from an emotionality perspective also really helped people. Again, Sophie Clark espoused this so beautifully years ago, changed the discussion of jury decisions from resume to story. Miles had the story. I'm sorry. Miles had the story of what he was able to do. And yes, it was full of flaws. I also love, again, in a true moment of self-reflection, when he's like, yeah, I kind of played like shit when I was on the top, right? Like, I just didn't know what to do. I was the guy living in the trailer who won the lottery and then spent all the money instantly because I just don't have good investment strategies. And so for him to, again, be so front-facing and so realistic about how he was over the past 47 days, I think wore so well on the jury.
Yeah, agreed. No notes.
Yeah. I love this win for Miles. I feel like this season... I think the season is underrated. I think coming after Heroes versus Villains...
Damn, it just went off.
It's 24 hours after the finale airs.
It just went off. How do you know what it's rated?
During this season, people have been harsh on the season because it's coming after two of the best seasons in Survivor history back-to-back. I've always enjoyed it. I've loved covering it. I think that there's been a lot to speak about. And I think that we'll look back that this story of these three guys is an amazing story, honestly. And we've had other great characters. Some issues with the edit, but I will say that I did my little bit of casual research. I went to 2 Satas with my family and then Peter's extended family. That's why I speak to the casuals about if they're liking the season. And they did. They all really liked it.
All
They were
right.
for AJ or Miles or both, or they had a lot of thoughts. And you know what? The ratings have been even better than Titans v Rebels, and they've only gone up. Seems like the podcast is doing pretty well too. So everything's going great. You know, like I feel like this was a fun season. I mean, Pooya, how did you feel about the season kind of overall looking back at it now?
Well, as someone who has very publicly said Titans vs. Rebels is my favorite Survivor season ever of any franchise, and it still is. I remember when we started the season, I was like unsure. I was a little like, let's see how this goes. But this is how you can tell it's been easy. I couldn't wait to start the next episode the minute it would get released. The minute I had access, I was watching that. And, you know, with Australian Survivor, especially for me, I mean, obviously doing the coverage helps keep me on point as well. But in the past, Shannon, I would just kind of let them collect, and then I would binge like 4 at a time, 5 at a time. But I was hooked. And how many podcasts did we kick off by saying, All right, the streak continues. Another great episode, and mind you, my podcast with you, Shannon, we had the middle ones of the week, and they were typically the no one's going home votes, but it was so entertaining the whole way through. And I do think that it is a season that's probably underrated. I personally, I mean, my memory is bad. I forget very quickly. I think I like this more than I did Heroes Villains, but
that's a hot take.
Maybe I might have to refresh. I don't recall. Yeah. I feel like the end game of Heroes Villains kind of didn't hit for me. I don't know. Maybe I could be.
That was because they did what
the beginning was fire.
Did, which was that they shed the shields towards the end, specifically.
Yeah, the shields were gone.
And it led to the newbie final three. I really did enjoy this season, and again, this is why I say time and time again, as much as we might have holy memory, don't try to remember seasons by going back and looking at a voting chart, because I do think on paper, to your point, Shannon, as fresh as this body might be, I think there's a lot of talk of like, well, this was just a graduate steamroll at the end of the day, and Miles had the winners at it. We had a 2-to-1-to-1-to-1 vote at the final 5.
That's nuts.
How wild is that? And even if the votes were a bit open and shut sometimes, the interpersonal dynamics, I was continually confounded by. The Coven has very much skyrocketed to the top of some of my favorite alliances in Survivor history because they were so goddamn messy. This season was so goddamn messy from beginning to end, considering that some of the biggest strategists were some of the messiest players from a social perspective who, as we just saw through a montage, would like openly tell Logan, like, well, you're not going to take it as well as Laura, so I don't mind telling you that to your face. Like, a lot of behaviors, especially towards the beginning of the game, that you thought people would keep in their inside voice became their outside voice. I made this comparison time and time again, but I feel like Chappell, Pooya, it will ring for you as well. I truly think this was the Big Brother 26 of Australian Survivor, where it was just people making a bunch of wild, wackadoo moves that oftentimes don't make a lot of sense. You have an end game where there's an alliance that's pretty locked in, and just due to competitions and due to dynamics, people sometimes do not make the proper move for their own end game and decide to go with this path towards the end, but it leads to an incredibly fulfilling winner. And I would say the best story for a winner in Australian Survivor history.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking Big Brother, but in a different way. I think that Miles' journey is very Taylor Hale to me. Very much like I'm getting picked on just because of my identity, just for like, kind of who I am is just not gelling with everybody for whatever reason, whether it's unconscious biases, whether it's just personality disputes, whatever. And I am fighting my every day. And so I make it to the end and you say, well, you didn't have a lot of control. You didn't do this. You did this wrong. You did this wrong. Yeah. But I am a sword, not a shield. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's the thing that Miles has going. He has that same arc of just like, we watched from the beginning. We saw every week we came in here and Shannon like, I just want to give Miles a chizzy just because he's out to deal with all this crap. And we're like, yeah, we were rooting for Taylor just because everybody else is rooting against her. You know what I'm saying? And so when he gets to the end and he wins, yeah, you look back on this, the story is so much better than the actual show that we are watching, because you're now watching Miles's winner story. And I think that's more compelling than any just random winning season of Survivor. You get to see somebody who will beat adversity as well as, win challenges and break records and be somebody that you can root for throughout. And then stand there next to a challenge beast who also broke records and win the game. So yeah, Big Brother coded for sure, because there's so much whack shit going on in the pre-merge. Okay, number one, these people are just doing whatever they want to do. Shannon, I know you say this is a very strategic jury, but all of them strategists on the jury played themselves right over there.
I said they see themselves as strategic. I said that it's important to their identity.
They strategize. They strategize. They ass over there.
Was like, well, Paulie's definitely going, but wouldn't it be funny if I?
She said she wasn't gonna do that. She wasn't gonna do that. She was being petty.
Well, look,
so you gotta respect the petty. Come on.
I kind of, but like, but if we run back the tapes, Miles played a good game. But make no mistake, there's a lot of people who just got out the way for Miles to play that good game. You know what I'm saying? Like we every week we're coming in here like, what are y'all doing? Because us watching it from home, we could see the AJ, Miles, and Kalin kind of like gelling, and we're giving them chizzy points every week. And we're trying to figure out ways for these other people, these like underdogs, if you will, or these bigger personalities. Like, how can you get these people out, these nuisances, these people who are clearly running the game? And we're coming in here every week like, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? I yelled for like 10 minutes. Go to rocks. Go to rocks. Go to rocks. Janet's like, go to fire, do something, and they did it. So Miles did enough to make it here, and I'm happy that he won. It was a good win.
Yeah, there's so much here. Firstly, I'm biased because I loved covering the season with you guys, and I think that definitely, like, my experience of it was so good. But I do think as well, yeah, Miles is a winner. I mean, it's very Rachel coded in terms of like being super adaptable. He talks about luck in my ex interview with him and at Final Tribal Council. I think he had bad luck. Okay, I think being biracial, bisexual, bi-tribal. Yeah,
now look, being a stripper paid off because he did well in that challenge, better than I thought he would have done in that challenge.
No, because he was the first to step off the pole.
But he had a job. I thought he had it. I said they gave you this one. What, I gave you poles?
Low key, when they moved to the second pegs and he was trying to make them, I thought he was about to lean on it with his feet up in the air.
And just like he almost did it. I was like, do it, Miles. Give your feet a break.
He honestly probably would have been more comfortable that way. Yeah.
It's weird because we rarely ever hear about Chekhov's pole, but it felt like that should have come back. But yeah, okay, finally.
You read a lot of Russian literature if you're not hearing about Chekhov's pole.
It's not what I'm reading. Having that identity on an Australian Survivor cast is already bad. Like, he's talking about his life. You were swap screwed as well. Like, there's so many things that I think, like, and he's like, why? He worked for his idols. He got one idol that floated to him in the water, and I told him.
Remember that time he yelled at everybody about, come on, prick?
I found the idol. Now, come on, let's go.
He was mad at them for throwing, and then he happened to find the idol that he needed.
That was divine intervention. That wasn't luck. Okay, the Survivor gods wanted that to happen. But yeah, I think that it's very interesting because it does feel similar to Rachel's game and being flashy and being adaptable and having losses that in the past I've criticized. But Rachel has made me see that sometimes if you have the losses but defensively can rally, there's a lot of power to that as well. And I think that that's Miles's game. Rachel as well has talked about like needing to overcome her own anti-Asian bias in the pre-merge because she had to be good at challenges that she's just expendable and then she became a threat. So they're both working within these things. All of that, how you come in there, it's not luck, but it's situational to you in a way that you have to manage that might give you a trickier path than other people. We have to talk about that for Miles. I think Miles's story is incredible. I wish it was a little less telegraphed in the edit, but I think if you really think about what happened,
when you have something like that, I cannot, especially from Australian Survivor perspectives, they make a freaking meal out of it.
Yeah, but just give AJ the same. Make AJ a little bit less negative, and then build up Kalin and Kate. They still could have told the story with a little bit more.
Oh, definitely. Kind of, I mean, that's the other thing as well. Like, I wouldn't say this is all grading on a curve. I would still put this below, like, when asked where this would probably rank in my Australian Survivor seasons, I would say maybe it tops out at like 4 for me, just because I think there are like 3 probably better put together seasons. I think, unfortunately, yeah, probably the weakest part of it is just the absolute purpling of some of these Brawn. And it's a little bit of like, chicken or the egg. Like, was it the weak casting, or was it other circumstances, or was it just the fact that they were not really that, instrumental to how the end game was with this Final 4?
Yeah,
it didn't matter at all.
Look, to be fair, the best seasons of Australian Survivor are a very high bar to judge against. I really enjoyed this season. And yeah, on Miles' story, like the PD move ended up making way more sense than we thought. And he spoke to that really well in the exit interview. He did have the historic stats that I think AJ gave really, really well at that Final 3 Tribal Council. On the bottom. And he did have power through the merge and, at times that I think he's going to end up winning the Chili. So he played a really great game as well. And I want to say as well, I think he's gonna win. I've played I've really enjoyed this end game because firstly, give me a final 2 with the final 3 Tribal Council. The fact that Kalin is crying, the weight of this binary choice, which was very weak strategically, as we've agreed, but man, emotionally, I was in tears. The fact that when he's putting the necklace on, he's crying. The fact there's so many things here that was annoying to you. Were you not crying, Chappell? You're
Shannon, you can't be. I'm broken. You've been a game bot for 25 weeks while we've been talking about this show, and then you want to wait to the end and be like, wait a minute, no.
That's because Shannon saw her mother around the corner in the form of this moment, right? She was very scared, and like as soon as it came around, she's like, God damn it!
I'm like, this is the killer instinct moment. I'm like, you better draw them tears out and go and put this game away, Kalin. I don't know, man. But Shannon, we talked a lot about Miles. We talked about Kalin. Can we please talk about my favorite player, AJ?
Yeah, we'll talk about AJ. Kalin loved AJ more than his mom is the first part. The second part is more than my mom. This endgame.
AJ, there's a role where AJ might be his future daddy.
What? No! Oh my God!
Oh, we saw the way he,
Yeah, listen.
We saw it. That would be a crazy way for this to end, a crazy way to get the 500,000. Like Rob proposed to Amber, but if AJ proposes to Miles' mom to get in on that money, that's too extreme, I think, to try and
I mean,
get
she
the
was
money.
Kaylin's
there.
mom.
What if AJ decided in that
Okay,
moment?
it was Miles' mom. Sorry, listen to me. It was Look at he's not even
Kaylin's
gonna get the
mom.
money. Why am I saying Miles' mom?
Her name is Lydia.
Her name is Lydia.
What a beautiful name.
Kaylin's mom has got it going on. Anyway, this is where we ended up. And I'm like calling her Miles' mom. And in my mind, I'm like, it's not even that I got the names wrong because I'm like, that's Miles' mom. He won the money. How broken is my brain? 24 episodes into the season. But anyway, AJ, don't marry Kaylin's mom. It won't even get you like some of the money because Kaylin didn't win. AJ, come on, what are you doing? No, really fun endgame. 2-1-1-1 because a final 2 is so freaking interesting and everyone's thinking, how can we get to the end on this endurance threat? And it's complex AF, and I loved it through to the final 3 tribal council. I thought that made the endgame really fun after a lot of really fun stuff before that. Let's talk about AJ. What did AJ do wrong? Now, I asked AJ that this morning, and AJ was way too hard on himself, and we'll talk about it. I don't think AJ did a lot wrong here, and I really maintain that. I mean, Kaylin's crying, and I feel like close to taking AJ at a point. Kalin did not turn on AJ earlier. At the final 4, he could have done it. He could have sent him to fire, could have risked stuff. At the final 5, when he knows that Miles is probably going to have an idol, he's not even thinking about it. So he gets to this point, but there was a lot of loyalty there, and I'm interested to talk to Kalin about, was he ever taking AJ? I think yes. I think there was a real possibility, and most importantly, AJ stands up there with the pokey foot challenge that we all thought they'd get, with probably the best challenge competitors that he can have from the final. From the final round onwards, yeah, he comes second. He beats Monty.
And he was making a show of it. These other guys were all mum, just concentrating. AJ's like doing a tight 5 for 3 hours.
Yeah, and Kalin is the challenge enthusiast, but this challenge, like the height was helping AJ. It's not a good body type. Usually these endurance challenges for someone like a Kalin. So look at the rest from Karen on. Look at the other people there. Literally, like Logan, Kristen, Morgan, Kate, Zara. All of those are trickier people for him to beat in the final immunity challenge. And I said that to AJ. I was like, don't be so hard on yourself. He's like, maybe I should have dragged people on earlier. And I was like, AJ, you cannot look. I'm harsh on myself. And my God, you're making me look kind to myself. So yeah, I don't see where AJ changes it. Chappell, you seem to think that there was the way that do you think there was something AJ could have done? Where did he go wrong?
Yes.
If AJ didn't win, was he ever going to get to the final 2?
He could have won this challenge. This was his
no,
best
I'm saying
challenge.
If he doesn't win that's what I'm saying. If he doesn't win the challenge, he's not going to the final 2. I don't think
anybody was close.
Do you know,
in a different world.
But we just watched him not take him. We just watched it happen.
But if anyone was going to take him, if anyone was going to take him, I think it was.
Let's say Miles doesn't win immunity at final 4. Shannon, do you know from your interview with Zara in a final 3 with AJ and Kalin, does Zara take AJ to the end?
She was super non-committal about it to me in the interview, to the point where I don't think that's a better bet than Kalin. I think Kalin's the best bet. And
nobody's taking him to the end. We just watched him not take him to the end. He's not taking him to the end, Shannon. And that's the flaw. The flaw is that you have put yourself in a position where you are such a big threat. You have not managed your threat level at all, socially, strategically, or anyway. That if you get to the final 4, you have to win. You have to beat a man who just won. You have to beat a man who won 8 challenges. 7 challenges. 7
and at that
challenges.
Point, he would have won 6 only. So
right. You also have to beat Miles, who also has won several challenges at that point. You have to beat Zara and Kate, who have proven themselves. Yeah. You have to beat Kate and Zara, who are walking around like, we are challenge enthusiasts as well. We are going to be great at endurance. At that point, this man has to bet on himself to win, and he does not have it. He has nobody to take him. At some point, you have to be able to say, if I can't win, at least somebody will take me. And he was wrong. He thought Kalin would take him, and Kalin did not. I think there is a flaw in that.
Yes, but what you're asking for him to do is to change the entire way that he played the game.
Yes.
The reason he can get
yes.
That's no, because then that might be so much worse.
Wait a minute. Hold on, pause. AJ could do what he did without being AJ about it. AJ was like,
him as AJ.
That's like telling a rainbow to not have the color purple in it.
Well, if the rainbow wants to win, then he needs to do something differently. Because here's the thing: AJ holding the tribe hostage is something people are not going to forget. AJ making people throw challenges.
They did though. They did. That's the thing. But we're finding out is that like this man somehow was able to concoct enough charisma over these people that it still boggles the mind for me. To your point, Shannon, of like, I'm having trouble going back and forth because I think from our perspective, we're looking at like, oh my God, this guy became a 0 vote finalist in episode 6 with what he did. But evidently, this guy had won over the entirety of the tribe by the 6th to last day of the show.
but not enough for
Here-
them to take him to the final two. He got to get to the final two, y'all. That's the, like Pooya had been saying this about Kalin. It doesn't matter if you can't sit next to there and get a chance to argue. And nobody is letting AJ that just sat there in the jury format and made an argument against both the people who are going up for this vote.
And
You gonna
right.
let that man? You gonna think you gonna let that man sit there and tell a speech? You're crazy. You're out of your mind. No, nobody was taking AJ to the final two. Stop it. Shenanigans.
Yeah. Now, if we were to just, because I agree with Chappell, if you're asking, let's look at this last round and what could he have done different? I called it at the beginning. I think his big mistake was thinking he's Eminem because he really thought he ate Miles, and he didn't. He didn't eat up Miles. The whole round, the whole round,
season is worth it.
the whole round,
Miles.
he spent
Really
being
is.
like, you know who's not gonna get tired? Me. I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna be fine. I'm not worried. I'm not going out of this challenge. When asked who would you like to win, he said, well, it'd be nice if Kalin would get immunity again. And Miles was like, yeah, no, absolutely not. And then the entire time spent again talking to Lydia about how amazing her son is and how everyone wanted to meet his parents because
And
he's
that's
such
a
an
good
amazing
story.
man.
He met a partner in this.
AJ was doing too much. I think if he had waited, Kalin wins immunity, they go back or whatever. If they don't have time, whatever. But he's like, oh my God, Kalin, we made it. We made it. I'm so happy for us. Let's finish this out together. That's it.
Know.
And this is the thing. I still agree with Chappell that I still don't think AJ is going to the end. But I think some tact and some subtlety would have helped, because at the end of the day, if I have an idea and I see you already vocalizing it and I feel like, okay, now people are going to think it's your idea, I'm not running with that idea anymore. I got to make it look like it was my idea. So you've already stolen that from me.
I would agree with that, but that's not who AJ is. And this is where we go
You're
back to
crushing
the
a
color
bird.
purple
You're
argument.
caging a bird.
Right.
Let it fly.
But that's the thing, is that AJ is someone who like was somehow able to become so likable through the fact that he was so open with people. He sat Miles down in the second to last episode and was like, yeah, here are all the ways you effed up your game. I'm just letting you know this. He was able to build this reputation of being this brutally honest person that I don't know how I would feel if he was so cagey to then be like, oh my God, I wasn't really going to be rooting for you before, but now that you are, like, I'm totally fine with it. Like, I think, yes, was his argument of vote with your heart very schmoozy. Yes, but it was playing on the fact that he had built a relationship with Kalin. He's not meeting this guy for the first time and saying, vote with your heart. Like, I think he was banking on a relationship that came from sincerity and, yes, openness. I think where AJ fails is the fact that he's AJ. I think that's the point that all three of us are making.
Yeah.
Yes,
this is a guy,
basically.
is that
he's
this is a guy
AJ.
who, despite the fact
He's
that,
too
again,
wolfy.
yeah, he's incredibly wolfy, but he's covered in wool at the same time. And he's like, listen, I'm a wolf, but I'm a wolf. Like, listen, I'm a little soft right now. You can pet me if you want to, but I'm a wolf. And they're like, well, he did say he was a wolf, unlike those other people that are pretending they're not.
I think this is what sometimes it's like someone loses and it's like, well, you must have done things wrong. It's like, but in the other parts, it's like a big thing with Jesse. Like if Jesse doesn't take out Cody, then he probably loses a different way. Jesse gets to the point where he's in a final four and needs to back himself and then loses. And AJ got to that point in the best possible way for him. And I still think that that's the best it's going to be, other than changing his whole personality. AJ was so much the jury threat. I think people don't necessarily understand that on TV based on the edit we got. But AJ, I think, was so much the jury threat that even if there's some more subtlety and he takes it down, I don't know how he's taken to the end ever. So he's in a great physical path for him with the person most likely to take him in Kalin, who is still probably in tears to this day. And I think that when he's, saying choose with your heart, I saw it as Kalin, you're gonna lose anyway. Maybe you take me through. Miles seems to think that Kalin,
and that was like that's like a very Scout Lil Morris argument, right? Of like, listen, you're gonna lose anyway. Want to give it to someone you like more?
Some of that's legitimate. I mean, I was like, it's really unfortunate. He's choosing he's going to win, and he's taking it from what he called his best friend in the world. Miles thinks Kalin thought he could have, won anyway. So maybe thought like JT style could have his cake and eat it too, and taking AJ and still winning. But I think it was an obvious move for Kalin. He makes the right choice. Miles talks about it well by being like, to be fair, you did promise us both. So once that's out the window, do it purely on game, and the decision makes itself. I don't know what else AJ can do there. I'm sure he will, ruminate on it at length, much of it in a deep dive with me very, very soon. But I just don't see it different. Like when we look back at Rob's game, are we like, you did things wrong? Are we like, you fell off a thing? He fell off a thing. That's like the main.
He probably should have got rid of Jenna instead of Heidi at the final.
He probably should have got rid of Jenna instead of Heidi. Yeah.
You would have thought time and the information he had, fine, I'm going to tell Rob what you all said. Firstly, secondly,
You know,
he mostly fell off a thing.
Mm-mm.
And I
So,
don't
yes.
really criticize falling off a thing as much as and while being in a spot where he played how he was going to play and got to the best possible position in it. And I don't criticize that the same way I criticize misreading the jury or getting to a point where you can't beat the person next to you. These are fatal big flaws. This is like the whole thing, the whole material of what you're playing with is wrong. AJ fell and in the best possible spot he could have fallen in, and I'm just not that harsh on it.
I'm about to make an accusation of you, and you're not gonna like it. I think you're being results oriented, and here's why.
I'm not.
Because
what?
and here's why.
How dare
and here's
you?
why. And here's why. Because all season we criticized AJ's social game. All season we did. All season. Every step of the way. Yes, every step of the way. We were beside ourselves when he was standing up there talking about when he was talking about
that was a whole new era season ago, Chappell.
But we were talking.
It's part of his game.
About that. And that is his perception. When they got to the merge, we were like, no, yes, Shannon, you said this yourself. When they got to the merge,
I was wrong.
I was like, yeah.
We were
what
wrong.
I'm saying is, no, I was right. I said AJ has somehow managed to get around this perception that he has to Kate. And I was like, the connection between AJ and Kate that they're making at this merge feast thing is really good for him because, and you were like, no, they just saw him doing all this stuff. I was like, no, the Kate thing is going to pay off. And it does. And it pays off over and over again. But they still know that's AJ. They know it's AJ. They want to work with AJ. But nobody, like you said, he's that big of a jury threat. They're not shocked by that. They all know he's a jury threat.
Okay.
If you were planning to sit by AJ at the final two, you are crazy. And none of them are that crazy. None of them are going to take AJ to the end. I think it's a flaw. You need to be able to win your way to the end, or somebody needs to be able to take you.
I don't think nobody was taking AJ to the end. I disagree.
Who's
I don't
going to take AJ to the end?
I think Zara was going to take AJ to the end.
She didn't say
Really?
she was, and I think that she's easier to pull across than Kalin.
I think Zara would absolutely, because it's the exact same thing that Chappell. Why do you think Kalin picked Miles? Well, okay, these are two big threats. But hey, this person has a pretty spotless record. This one has a lot more holes in the argument that I can expose. It's a losing battle either way, but I'm going with the more flawed bet.
No,
so you think that Zara would have picked Zara would have picked AJ, but Kalin picked Miles? I think they're both picking Miles.
I completely agree with Chappell on that. That's the first one. The second thing is Zara.
I'm saying Miles. I'm saying if Miles wasn't there.
Yeah, well, Zara's sitting there with Kalin and AJ, right? So firstly, there's one point to this. At the point where Miles wins immunity, he really blocked it up, and Miles thinks he was out the door at that point, and I'm going to ask Kalin. I mean, clearly, my argument was Kalin will maybe give Miles fire so he can sit at the end with AJ. That doesn't seem to be true. I did wonder, is Kalin just going to give Miles fire out of pure loyalty to Miles, given how much he's crying in this final three of guys? Miles thinks that he was out the door. So if that's the point where AJ needed to get to a final three with Kalin and Zara. Firstly, Kalin is definitely taking Zara. He took Miles even, so he's definitely taking Zara. And Zara's at a position where she's not even choosing between the difficult choice, where you kind of lose both ways, that Kalin had between Miles and AJ. Zara's choosing between a possible win with Kalin against AJ. I mean, she was non-committal, but I definitely wouldn't be, to the fact that she's non-committal now.
Yeah, let's clarify here. I think of the final four, she would have taken Miles first. AJ was second, Kalin was third amongst those options. What I'm saying is,
that's crazy.
Miles went out at 4.
I don't
she
agree,
would have
Mike.
taken AJ to the final two. Chappell, she would have.
I don't
done
agree.
It.
I just feel like if you look at Kalin, at Kalin and AJ next to each other, and you're like, which one of these people I can beat? I don't think there's any world where you're like,
so
it's AJ.
What about the narrative of, hey, I just took down the guy who won 6 immunity challenges and voted him out? Is that enough of not enough of a cogent argument?
It's against Kalin.
Yeah,
it's a good argument against Kalin that I took Kalin to the end. And then for AJ, and then if it's at the point where Miles wins immunity, if he wants to go with Zara and Miles and hope that she takes Miles over him, again, maybe that's a better bet than I think being there with Kalin, AJ, and Zara. And at that point, that's all he has. But he can't even really take Zara out there, because then the other option is Kalin. And if Miles is definitely voting for Zara, and then if Kalin's definitely voting for Zara, now it's like Kalin, Zara, fire, and Kalin definitely wins that. So Miles blocked up a lot at the final four. Maybe you could say if that's his better path to be sitting at the end with Kalin and Zara, which I actually don't agree with, then Miles blocked up both Kalin and AJ by winning a really pivotal final four immunity when Kalin won pretty much all the other immunities. And I do think that even that's not good. If it's getting to the end with Zara, if it was getting to the end with Zara, Miles, and where are we? Zara, Miles, and AJ, I still don't think even Zara takes necessarily AJ over Miles, because they're making the same arguments, and it even worked on Kalin. If it was going to work on anyone, it was Kalin, and it didn't. I really do think that. And then, again, at the final four, it's hard to get there with Miles and Zara, and then, Miles has won immunity. very, very blocked up Final Four. And I don't know that there's a better Final Three for him. Chappell, we agree with each other, but I was going to disagree with you on something else. And now I don't remember what it was.
Because I said you were being results oriented, and then I saw
Oh,
you
right.
like
Thank you so much. I'm not being results. Thank you. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I disagree with Chappell, but what? We've moved so far past.
I can't remember
No.
why. No.
AJ's social game.
Look back.
AJ's social game was so good that he recovered from the hostage thing fine. We didn't see it. We saw Final Three loser AJ. I'm telling you, in the exit interviews at Jury Villa,
I agree with Shannon.
They loved him. They got over it fine. They were all fine with even the hostage thing.
Well, yeah, just because you hate his beard doesn't mean that everyone else did.
Listen. I'm not saying he was.
The beard pretty mid. Wait. Yeah, here's the thing.
Go ahead, Pooya.
When I do this, that doesn't mean no, and it doesn't mean hell yeah, because yes, there were elements that he showed that he was good with. I think the recruitment of working with Kate is a huge notch and shows that. Here's the thing, though. He's had so many arrogant moments that I think, we're sitting here talking about, Miles, you brought in Pauly and then you burned him anyway for no point. It felt like that a little bit, where he worked so hard. Okay, bring the graduates back together. Okay, let's bring this. Let's do this now. And then he would sit there and be like, my only thing I'm thinking about is, I know how to spell Zara's name. Yeah, I know how to do that. Even the stuff, I think he is a flawed player. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I think he's had good moments with social that he's proven, and I think he's also had bad moments, like the hostages and all that stuff. So I think he's done both. I'm saying he's capable of both, but I don't think it's there. You can say a blank was so good because I do think there was also moments where you can say was so bad because. You know what I mean?
Right. And I'm not knocking his social game. I'm not saying he doesn't have a good social game. I'm saying that once he got here, who is taking him to the final two? Yes, let's say AJ wins 100% of the time if he gets to the final two.
Zara.
But how you gonna get there? You know what I'm saying? If he wins 100%, right? Exactly. That's why I'm like,
in the path that was meant to be with Kalin and Zara, she's definitely taking Kalin. In the path where he can somehow take out Kalin, which he can't at the Final Four, but at the path we can do that, and it's with Miles, maybe that's closer. And even then, they're making the same exact arguments with Zara having one except Kalin, and Kalin's crying. Is Zara crying? The Ice Queen? No. Highly doubt it. No. There's no way.
I mean,
go ahead, Mike.
Well, I think it's just for me. I totally agree. By the way, that I think AJ is an incredibly flawed player. What just still confounds me is that Australian Survivor, especially, still has a really tough time personifying what a social game is. I think it just has, outside of some very hammered in your head scenes from Shani, where she's like, I will sit down and talk with you about things that we have in common, and now we are going to work together. They just do a very, very tough job because they are coming at their messaging from such a confessional forward angle, which is almost always about strategy and building yourself up. Again, I totally agree. I think AJ was an incredibly arrogant character, and he was somebody who I was astounded that he was able to get away with saying so many things to so many people's faces. But again, I think it's building up that reputation of him being like, I am an open player. I will stab you in the front instead of stabbing you in the back. And hey, if you feel betrayed, I gave you the warning. And that's what makes him and Miles such an interesting duo as well. Yes, they kind of lost out on they purposely separated themselves from being each other's buddies towards that middle portion of the game. But to watch the similarities and differences between the two, I mean, there's a reason why they could not go to the final two together, as much as I would have loved that. I was trying to manifest it the past 9 weeks, is how much these guys both almost found soulmates in each other in the game. Not to take away from the beauty.
What you mean with Kalin's mom?
Yes, exactly. I found love in this game, and her name is Lydia. But I think that it's this idea that these two saw the game in such a similar way, had almost the exact same pros and cons to them, and how aggressive they were playing and how that both worked for and against them. It is incredibly astounding to me and understandable given the fact that they were sort of keeping each other as shields, oh, don't get rid of me because you can get rid of Miles, etc. But the fact that they made 2 of the final 3 is so much fun. That these are 2 people who saw in each other what they couldn't see in everyone else around them, and were able to work together, work apart, what have you, for so long in the game, and then serve as the final 2 dragons in a manner of speaking. It just depended on who was going to fall in 3rd place.
Yeah. And my last point. It's the same conversation, but I do think that I look at Kalin games and AJ's game almost like opposites. Kalin is waiting until the very last second to take off the mask and be like, no, it was really me. AJ is walking around with the mask off and then expecting to get to the final 3 and be like, take me, please. It's like Miles is right there. Don't take like no, stop it. We saw you with the mask off the entire episode, the entire season, and you want to get to the final four like you can sit next to me. You won't lose. Don't you want to do that? Do what's in your heart. Boy, put that mask back. Take that. Give me that mask. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know. For me, it's like King George. You're always getting cut at 3, George. If you don't win that challenge, you're not going to get to the final 2. Sorry.
Well, we have a question in the chat. We can take a couple of questions and then get to the chizzy. Matt Benjamin asks, who played the better game? AJ, who always gets 3rd, or Kalin, who usually gets 2nd? And I do think that that's kind of what we're talking about. But the thing is, if you're removing the fact that AJ was such a big threat, that threat level is what gets him here. That's how he has all the control to get to this point. That social game that's so evident is also then having the impact to get him here. Removing that changes that entire pathway. And it's evident because it's working, but it's working so it gets him here. So for me, like, the AJ game is better because he falls off the thing, and maybe Kalin does. Maybe Kalin gets a cramp and AJ is a winner. But Kalin needs to go back and think, maybe to be fair, Kalin needs to beat Miles at that immunity challenge. But even then, like against Azara, how does this go? Like, he's hiding a lot of things and he really needs a good final tribal council performance. Whereas maybe does he need to flip it like a 6? Does he need to flip on AJ at 5? These are big moves and really tricky decisions to change a whole path for Kalin. Whereas one cramp for Kalin away from AJ winning $500,000, and he put himself in the best spot to do that.
You're counting on a cramp for the person who has the most wins in global Survivor history.
Well, but he might be tired because he's won so much.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I'm counting on Kalin beating Miles that one time. Like, this might be the one time Miles ever beats Kalin in that challenge.
That's true.
But Kalin, you can bet on Kalin. You can bet on Kalin, and most times you're gonna be right.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little confused about the question. Is it that we're trying to do the Kalin Brandt steal and just run it over and over and over again? Or is it like, because I would count on, like, I think Kalin, his game style and the way he pitched himself would win in other Survivor seasons. I would even
other
say
juries, other person to sit with the final 2.
Yeah, he would.
But he doesn't sit with them.
I would argue he would win against other Australian Survivor winners. Like, I'm not sure what the point in the question.
No, but if he beats Miles, Shannon, he could sit with. He could sit with.
That is true. And if the failing is that Kalin needs to win the final 4 challenge and doesn't, and AJ needs to win the final 3 challenge and doesn't, then they're pretty similar losses, honestly. If that's the mistake,
exactly.
I think maybe that's a similar pathway and similar mistake. I think the issue for Kalin, is that he's sitting next to these people and possibly it requires a shot that he didn't get to take. But if that's on a challenge win, then we can be kinder to Kalin about that. If that's on the fact that Miles said, and I'm going to talk to Kalin, that he thought he could beat both, and it's more on kind of like misreading that jury, that's like a more fatal mistake for me.
Yeah. That's an inherently flawed part of being a Survivor player, is if you're misreading the jury in general.
Yeah, and he gets to the final tribal council and he's like, my game is like, you go with people who think they can beat you. It's like, yeah, but they can beat you. So that stops being, as good an argument at that point. So yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Kalin's game is it's not like a Russell Hans type game that's always going to be that he's a losing finalist. He just needed to, it put him in kind of like a middle position, and it just meant he had a trickier path to get there and he wasn't able to capitalize on it. But he doesn't lose against everyone. It's just that he needed to then maximize that path, and possibly what blocked him up, possibly the fatal flaw is not, for me, the biggest thing is not winning that Final 4 immunity challenge. And if he didn't want to bank on Final 4, he needed to be making different decisions against AJ at 5 or against Miles at 6, and that's quite a big call. So for me,
I did find the Kalin winning argument, by the way. I just came up with it. It's very simple. He steps forward. He looks the jury dead in the eye as he says, I've taken 2 people out of this game. If you don't vote for me,
force. Yeah,
I will hurt you.
I will accidentally injure you.
Pooya, you had a point.
Well, I was gonna say that when talking about, like, there's a couple of different directions you can look at it. Where if we're talking them playing, like, let's say 5 times more apiece, are they coming in being known as AJ, being known as Kalin, or are they like, it's like a Men in Black memory wipe and it's like starting fresh?
Yeah, start fresh.
Okay, you're starting fresh. I think that Kalin can find himself in this end game almost every time and can make those adjustments needed. The problem is, I think the way AJ played, there's been so many times this season where we've talked about how there's no way this should work. There's no way he should still be here. There's no way. And I feel like you run it 5 times. I think AJ can make it to the end. Let's say 3. 2 of them, he might be the 3rd boot of the season.
Look,
like, I just don't think
Kristen
he makes it that
had
far.
gone to Rocks, look, Look back at when we get to look back to where we got to the point where half the people on the jury don't even know what the tie is. AJ is getting good. Kalin over there safe. Yeah, vote for whoever you want. Tie it up, lock it up. I don't care. AJ is exposed, and the only thing that's saving him is that they don't even know the rules of the game.
No.
Oh, you
AJ,
think AJ could have been like, oh, Kate, you actually are supposed to take the tallest person to the end. That's the rules of Survivor.
No, that's where we disagree.
AJ to rocks.
AJ and Miles win not going to rocks because they are weaponizing the fact that they know the other side don't know what rocks are.
Why?
And that is
these
legitimate.
people should know the rules. Damn it!
And that goes back to almost to this question and to Miles' point that he also makes as well, where he again in this incredibly self-reflective tribal council says like, I don't know why, like I'm not playing the game that I thought should be a perfect winning game. But I played this game and this is why I should win. And that's what's so incredible about this is the fact that like, and again, if you think about like who's the closest equivalent to Miles as, you know, a winner in terms of story, I think Rachel's certainly up there, but like he's got so many Tony shades of just this should not have worked. He has a lot of very good inherent skills, but my God, he did so much to muck that up. And it's incredible. And it's such a unicorn of a game that, again, is not replicable to Kalin's point, nor should it be, because it was just this very special set of circumstances and skills that allowed him to play in this way that 99 out of 100 times, to go back to the simulation question, would not work at all.
It's very hard to replicate an Australian Survivor. It is a long game. Do you think that Chappell in his 90s will be sitting in a chair, rocking back and forth, literally rocking back and forth, being like, rocks. Yeah. That was that it? Okay, one more question from the chat and we'll get to the chizzy because I know that Sam wants to go at the very least. Here, Renee Dippers asked, did anyone else think that Kalin was almost going to give up his own spot at the final tribal? Okay, I thought they were going to do scissors, paper, rock, speaking about rocks. What did you all think was happening at that point?
I was annoyed.
Can you repeat the question?
What did you think?
Did you actually think that
Kalin was giving up his own spot? Did you ever think he was
not for 1 second? It never crossed my mind.
Twitter was thinking.
What I thought happened when he took sidebar, I was like, oh, he's about to let AJ know he's voting him out before he does it. That's because I was like, there's no other reason to pull a sidebar. I thought he's about to be like, listen, you're about to go. You're not mad at me, are you? Like, is that, you know? So that's what I
thought. I thought
so
if Kalin was about to pull an Ian Rosenberger, we would have gotten so much more leading up to that moment. We would have gotten so much mental strife from this man of I just can't do it. And even if we didn't have any time between the Challenger Tribal Council, we would have gotten a lot of it beforehand leading up to it. The fact that we didn't get much from it just made me feel like, yeah, he's more so kind of looking for a sign for somebody else to say, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to do this.
Yeah, it made it like the difficult argument.
He wanted him to do what Logan. He wanted to do what Logan did several days ago, right? Which is like, no, it's okay. I know. You're not going to go to rocks for me. Just let me go. I'm good.
Yeah, he wanted permission, which was hard because AJ was very much going with the like, go with your heart thing, which was like, I'm not giving you permission. Go with your heart. That's me. I think that I know what went wrong here for AJ. I know what went wrong here. And we're saying that he just fell off. There was another way he could win. If his best friend doesn't come out and it's his mom, firstly, Kalin falls in love with his mom. We've got some weird thing going on there. And then the fact that he introduced his best friend, Kalin was like, so I'm not your best friend? Okay, well, I'll just cut you. That was the issue for AJ.
No, that's a good point.
AJ should have been like, I don't know this man.
Yeah. Literally. This is my acquaintance.
I don't share best friends with people. I have one best friend, and I've been very clear about this since I was like 6 years old. My best friend, you have to be my best friend, and vice versa. You can't have other best friends. I can't be your best friend and then somebody else's. You are best friends with Mike. Am I dumb? Do I look like I'm dumb?
Mike. I love you so much.
Do I look like Boo Boo the Fool? My best friend got me a Sari cameo for my birthday. So, but yeah,
your best friend's pretty good too.
You're welcome,
Chappell. So dope. He's so awesome. He's so dope. But no, I agree. I think that to me, I would have vomited. It would have just destroyed everything. It would have destroyed the season for me if he had just given that, just like folded. And I would love to see AJ have pressured him and then he folded. But it just felt like, it was just like, no, this is my friend. And if you look back, maybe that's why Kalin is making such bad moves at the end as far as like going to the end with these people, because that's so, like, if AJ didn't have a bond with anybody else, he had one with Kalin. And that was a very important bond. It just wasn't strong enough to get him over that hump. It's like Ken McNichol and David Wright, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, we wanted you to do this a long time ago. So yeah, you cut him now, but you should have been cut him. Why are you doing this now? Like, yeah, it feels like now we twisted your arm into it. You didn't really want to do it, and now you didn't got up and pulled a sidebar.
Yeah,
like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
Kalin also loved to go out fishing. I'm sure he ran into some Sir Squiddingtons or two while he was out there trying to feed the rest of the tribe.
It was very Ken coded.
Yeah.
It was like, well, you just took the money away from your best friend, and you're also not going to get it. At
And-
least
and
he's
also-
also close friends with Miles.
And also, Kalin was somebody that said in a previous episode, right? He's like, says openly to people, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely someone that wants to go to the end preaching honesty and loyalty. And again, that was Ken's thing to the point that it's like, yeah, you made this thing, but it also does kind of go against everything you've been saying the other 38 days of the game.
Yeah,
Real.
well,
That's so
my
real.
best friend and I are going to give out Chizzy points. Take it away, Jacob Sager-Weinstein and MC Color.
It's getting kind of chizzy. 3, 2, 1.
Mike, can I ask you a question before y'all dish out?
Yeah. This isn't
Mike,
really
you're the person who's giving out you're giving out points tonight. Would you like me and Chappell to also have points? Not that it's going to impact anything. Just wondering what your
It makes
thoughts
no
are.
sense for you guys to have points. It's not
Shannon,
your recap.
Shannon,
Wait, hold on.
I'm just asking Mike a
Okay,
question.
can I just pull these guys to the side for a second? Okay.
Yeah.
do
Hi,
that.
Mike. It's just
Okay,
us now.
do
Okay,
any
now
of you
that Zara's
want-
gone, it's looking a little bit better.
Do any of you want to give up your right to give points? Just to say that off the top.
I wasn't even supposed to be here this week. Okay, so I
Yeah,
think
same.
but you want us to
Bonus.
pick, Mike? Would you go with your
All
heart?
right, never mind. The jury's here. I'll come back.
My best friend of all, taking me out of my own podcast. Wow, the betrayal is painful, and the sidebar looks weak. Mike, you are lucky you still get points. But
Oh, no. Oh, listen, let me just say the betrayal will be all around because to Pooya, to your offer, I say, fuck no.
Shoot.
That's fine with me. Chappell, joke's on them. We already decided who the winner is when I did the last Chizzy points. So
Yeah.
enjoy your
done.
filler
We're inviting
segment,
you
if
in
you
right
will.
now. You're our loved ones. This is our house. Episode 24 is my gig.
the joke's
I'm
on
in.
everyone because like
I'll
Miles
be
winning
Nabil.
Miles winning the season to like anyway sews this up in a way that's not super interesting. Like he's gonna win the Chizzy, I'm sure, and so it's not actually that important. Even though unfortunately you guys don't get points because it's not your episode and you weren't meant to be here. I don't know why you're here even right now.
I'm just here.
Chappell, shall we?
Yeah,
Shall we
let's
go?
My best
Yeah, let's
friend. All right, Chizzy session. Thank God they're gone,
Thank
right?
God. All right, here we go.
I can't tell if they're still in the thing because this isn't my like usual.
Oh yeah, we're still here.
I'm like, are they going for real? Because I was going to do plugs and stuff. Sam is so sick of us doing the Chizzy. I'm giving 3 points to Miles. He won the game. Great job, Miles.
Yeah.
Capitalized on it. Taken to the end. Got to a good final 3 where he had AJ there as a threat and did well at the final tribal council. Amazing job. Chizzy winner and game winner Miles. And I don't have the charts in front of me, but I know it's true. Giving 2 points to Kalin. It was the right move to take Miles. There was some good stuff at the final tribal council. We've definitely pointed out the flaws, but from the point that he came in on, I think that the opening speech was great. I think he really won Kristen's vote, and I'm so glad he got a vote. This is the first vote since I think George, because Mark won unanimously, Liz won unanimously, and Ferris won unanimously. And I hate a unanimous vote because I want people to get points for what like they've earned. And he earned Kristen's vote in the relationship and the way that he spoke to the pillars that mattered to her. So I wanted to credit that and the decision to take Miles through to the end, which was while it took away AJ's money for seemingly no real reason for Kalin, it was the right decision to give him the best shot to win. 1 point to AJ to get to this point. 1 foot cramp away, AJ. Don't be second guessing yourself. You were close, okay? And I hope that you and Kalen's mom are very happy. Mike, do you have points?
Of course I have points. So I will make this a rather rote outcome and continue to pile onto Miles. He is at the top of the Chizzy charts. The only time he's really top in anything right now, but he proves that he has been quite versed in this game. I mean, again, the quote that I butchered beforehand, but just to clarify here in his closing argument, I'm so proud of the game I played, not just because it's a big game, but it's my game. It's a game that shouldn't have really worked, but I made it work, which is also, again, very oppositional to Rachel, who has been very much like, I did not come in intending to play like this. I did not think I would, tie the immunity record for women in Survivor history. Miles is like, no, I'm pretty sure this is how I would have played, no matter what. And just to have him relish in everything that he brought. I mean, he was warts and all in this final tribal council. And I think this was the perfect jury for it. He had the perfect story. When he fell off those posts, I thought he was absolutely done, but his game was far from done. And yes, it was not a game that really should have worked time and time again. But this was a season that proved that the impossible can become possible. And so I have so much appreciation. Not to say that every single time a super duper fan has to win a Survivor season, but let's go back to the Millennials versus Gen X example. Like watching Adam Klein, who lives and breathes Survivor, get to win and have it be so meaningful to him with how much the show has made his life. It's awesome for Miles. I'm so looking forward to Miles being like an ambassador of Survivor. I'm really intrigued to see how the gameplay of people like Miles and AJ might inform what comes next. I would imagine that a lot of the chaos this season was informed by what Titans v Rebels was in terms of its constantly shifting dynamics. And so to have this gameplay be literally rewarded, I think it's going to be incredibly interesting moving forward. So I don't know if
Cast
more
strippers. Cast more
He's not a
strippers.
stripper. He's a pole dancer. It's different.
You don't know if he strips. You don't know that.
I guess I don't. You're right.
And he did take it all off in front of the jury and showcasing his vulnerabilities, talking his game up enough. And again, the poker analogy was chef's kiss. It was so freaking good, but especially due to the fact that there was a poker player sitting there. Like to Pooya's earlier point, he was able to have an actual dialogue in a final tribal council rather than have it be a dissertation. And I think that is one of the many things that gives him the win. Now look. This is a way to finalize the entire season. So this is not indicative of the entire finale. But I have to give at least a little bit of kudos to a man who has the cojones to talk up one's mother while his best friend is standing nary 4 feet, however many meters away from him. That is AJ in a nutshell. And that is why I'm giving AJ 2 points. But also beyond that, I thought he was such a fun juror. I'm also giving him a lot of brownie
favorite
points
player
because
That's
he
not
was
what the
such.
Jizzy's about.
It doesn't. These are my points.
Hey,
it's yours. Yeah, do what you want with them,
I
Mike.
gave them away.
Mike,
Maybe
I
worse.
support you. I support you, Mike.
Thank you. Because I thought that AJ, I loved him. Again, jurors don't need to do this, but him coming in from the top rope, and I don't know how this was edited when he came in the chronology, if it was towards the end, but still, it was just such a fun representation of who AJ is, again, which is bloviating, brutally honest, but somehow simultaneously entertaining at the same time. So I wanted to commemorate one of the biggest players of the season. You know, much like we saw with Varys and Kirby last year, there's a reason why when after Miles is crowned, the camera immediately cuts to AJ, is because I think, you know, to some people's chagrin, this will be remembered as the Miles and AJ and Coven season. And I think that AJ was a massive part, as he espouses in the beginning, as to why this season was as wild as it was. 1 point to the son of Lydia, that SOL to Kalin. Again, had us in the first half, not going to lie, with his final tribal council pitch, but I think it was wrong place, wrong time, wrong argument. But he does legitimately seem like such an earnest person. And, you know, I'd be intrigued. Ordinarily, I think people like these would be more torn throughout the course of having to break people's hearts, but it was so much fun to watch him like kind of marinate it all season long. Like, he says, oh yeah, people aren't having fun out here. I'm having a lot of fun. And it was fun to have something that I didn't think would happen, which would be this mask off moment. Granted, it was a little bit of a womp womp scenario, more so than we thought, but to actually have it come to fruition in the final tribal council was a nice button to the end of this story, albeit I don't even know how much the second place get. It's not like, I know we say
$0.
$0.
Albeit one that costs $500,000.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think those points are perfectly valid. Thank you, Mike, for your points. I love you, best friend. I love all of you. I want to talk about, you know, this was such a fun season to cover. And I think I'm the real winner because I loved it. Again, like, it's hard to pass out like the season from my experience covering it because I loved it so much. I was going through a little bit personally in the season, but every time I came on to do the recap with you guys and all my guests through the feedback show and the interviews, I had such a great time. Like, I truly just loved it so much. So I want to thank all of you. You are unrankable to me. Whatever criteria we put you in, whoever we compare you to, I love you all so much, and I really loved covering the season, so thank you for being a part of it. It worked really well. They said we couldn't do it, or they said we shouldn't do it. I don't know which one it was, but they said, you're going to do all 24 episodes, and we said yes, and we did like 40-plus podcasts, and it was great, and I have no regrets, and I'm the real winner, I think, is the, you know, I can't win a draft.
Oh, you're speaking like every person that gets voted out of Survivor.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all. I loved it. Let's go around and give the plugs. Mike, as my best friend. You go
You
first.
should. I mean, if you want to start with me, sure, we can start from the most content because there's a lot happening at this moment. Let's start with the
Go off,
most
Mike.
Australian centric and work our way around the globe here because Shannon Guss, a little over 24 hours ago, you and I got together to talk about not only the current season of Australian Survivor, but the next season of Australian Survivor. In the middle of this, the promo for the penultimate episode showed the first absolutely epic promo for the next season, Australian Survivor AU versus the world, taking 7 legends from the game. Unfortunately, nobody from Brains vs. Brawn 2, but plenty of representation against 7 people, legends, titans of the game in their own right from everywhere else around the world but Australia, coming at some point over the next few months. But if you want a brief reality flash-esque fix as to our reactions to the theme, what we know about the season so far, and basically getting an elevator pitch on every single cast member so far, I think I speak on Shannon's behalf that there's going to be much, much, much deeper dives into each one of these people. But there is so much excitement that is building, understandably so. I said it on the podcast. I think, with no offense to other Survivor seasons that have come before it, this is the closest we have gotten to an out-and-out legend season in Survivor. And regardless of what happens, I'm pumped for it. Speaking of Reality Flash, and speaking of people that I'm on this panel with, I was joined by Chappell and Jenny Autumn to talk about Got to Get Out on the Reality Flash. We tried something a little bit different. This time it was more of a one-off recappy thing. Got to Get Out is a goddamn ridiculous show. We had a lot of fun talking about some of the very fun moments from that Hulu series, so you can check that out, as well as my general stuff on the Reality Flash. I'm doing the B&B. I'm doing Amazing Race. I'm doing The Last of Us. I'm doing Down the Hatch. I'm doing Andor. I've got another hand of content I'm sure that will be coming out soon. Plenty of stuff going on over at parade.com, but you can follow each and everything I am doing over at a Mike Bloom type on all social media platforms.
Chappell, you're doing a lot of also what Mike just said. You were included in that. Mike's doing so many podcasts. It's like we're just where do we link up with Mike?
Yeah. Mike gets around. Nobody's shocked by that. I'm doing Got to Get Out with Mike.
I am a power bottom of
it was so much
podcasting.
fun.
People have said that.
Yeah, sure. And so Jenny and I joined Mike for Got to Get Out coverage. Chantel and I were on the Nothing But Netflix podcast talking about Pop the Balloon live. It was a great time on Nothing But Netflix. But then we have Battle Camp coming soon. Kirsten and I will be talking about the premiere of Battle Camp on Netflix next week. And so make sure you tune in to that as well. And then we'll be talking about the whole season at the end of the week as well. So a lot of Netflix coverage coming for you. And then, of course, Recap Kickback, my podcast where I talk about whatever I want. And, we got a lot going coming your way. Abbott Elementary coverage. Shannon, I think you still need to catch up, right? Is that a thing?
Oh my God.
It got very Survivor-y. It got very Survivor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been catching up slowly. I've watched when I can. 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, Gia and I are covering it, so make sure you tune into that. Then I joined Dr. Amanda and Ariel several times last week. We talked about the White Lotus finale, and then we talked about The Pit. So that was a good time. And then I think Ariel and I have to talk about Grey's Anatomy soon too. So I'm everywhere, but you can follow me on all social media platforms at Recap Kickback.
Pooya, what do you have going on? Also a lot. There's a lot of podcasts in this.
Let's see. I mean, obviously find me on socials at Pooyaism, twitch.tv/Pooya. That's where I am when I'm going to be, when I'm not podcasting. But right now the podcasting slate is getting lighter for me. I have 2 shows going on, Pooya and Liana Lounge every week. Make sure you check that out. We have a lot of fun there. And the 90 Day Fiance podcast, the Hot Mess Express, waits for nobody. And I've caught up now. We're doing well with the progress. I am about to move, but I'm going to try and keep all that content consistently out there.
Pooya's making a big move in honor of the season.
I am, exactly.
Right?
And call me Kalin.
Yeah. Okay, well, you can find me at Shannon Gates, WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com. Still a lot coming. All the X interviews, I've spoken to everyone but Kalin. We'll speak to Kalin very shortly. We'll put those all out as one podcast. Then we're going to have the feedback show. I'm doing that Wednesday night, Australia time. So think like come out Wednesday in America, overnight kind of into Thursday in Australia, and that is with Mark and Eden. So excited to kind of tie a bow on this whole season. And then, but I say that, and then the deep dives, which are coming, and they're gonna be long deep dives, and it's gonna be a fun time. So AJ and Miles, I'm locked into both of them, and I'm gonna reach out to some other people, whether that's before or after my Euro trip, I don't know at this time. But AJ and Miles will be coming out in the next, say, like I don't know, week or so. And then what else we did? Yeah, as Mike said, AUV World is happening. AUV World, and Mike and I talked about it. That podcast is already out on the We Know Global Survivor feed. Before we go, Chappell and then Pooya. Chappell, thoughts on AUV World? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came back to me because I do have more plugs. So, Rob and I talked about
thing.
Rob and I talked about AUV World on the Club Condo this week as we talk about Survivor every week. Yeah, so we got to talk about the cast. I told him that he needs to learn Swedish or Finnish, whatever, because I listened to you and Mike, talk about it. So check that out. And then I got exit interviews coming for $1 Million Secret. We were able to line up a couple of those, and so if you liked $1 Million Secret, come see who Scally and I are talking to soon. More plugs, but yes, AUV World. Shannon, please have me back. I know it's a shorter season, but you can get me on for at least one.
We're right here.
All my faves are going to be there.
You can't get rid of us now. The rotation is going to be forevermore.
Yeah,
I love a good rotation.
I've said many times I've loved talking to you guys. Whatever we can make work is something I would love to do. This works so well, and I enjoyed it so much. Pooya, thoughts on AUV World? Is this something you also have already podcasted about?
I have not gotten a chance to talk about it yet, no, but I'm very excited, as everyone is. You're not going to get a different reaction from me. I'm hella pumped, and I'm very excited to be back with the team to cover it when it drops and to give out Chizzy points once again. Yes! It's going to be a great time.
Woo! I didn't get to give any Chizzy to Kirby because you wouldn't let us, but now I can. Bring us back.
Chappell, we're so back. Yes.
Oh my God. You guys are so not coming back. You've done everything possible to not come back. So if you come back, it really just shows the depth
Shannon,
of my
pick a lane. Do you love us or did we ruin everything?
I can't live with you, can't live without you, right? That's where we're at.
That's the thing about blood.
Mike, I just love you. It's pure.
Oh, it's mutual. But no, and seriously, massive kudos to you, Shannon. Like, this is no easy feat for dealing with us three maroons.
Yes.
And also breaking down some incredibly complicated decisions that were being made over the course of this season that usually had us scratching our heads. You were the one that was trying to get into our heads, telling us about what was going on behind all of these people. I know I speak on behalf of not only the three of us and not only on behalf of all the people watching live, but all the people that have been watching, listening, reading all season long. You put in such tireless effort and we thank you.
A gangster.
This series would not be what it is without you. And we are just so lucky to have you in our lives that continue to do it, as you will be in a puddle by the end of getting to talk about Surrey Fields on Australian Survivor in due months' time.
I can't wait. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. I mean, I manifested it in a million different ways. Firstly, Mike giving that speech, that's my best friend. Also, when I said to Pooya, oh my God, you're going to get to talk to Tony, and I was so happy for him, and then I got it back. See, I put that into the universe, and then I got it back, and I'm incredibly excited about that. Thank you to the chat. Thank you for being here live. Thank you to all the listeners. Every time I just go and see that it's like charting well and that people are listening, I'm like, okay, good. We're not like speaking out into the abyss. But then the players are like, I was listening. I'm like, that's too far. Okay, specific people I want listening to this. No, and I love it. I appreciate the players so much. I have to say that the cast have been so gracious. We've been here every episode trying to see through and edit, trying to analyze it. We are passionate people as well, and the cast have been incredibly gracious, and I'm incredibly grateful for them as well. And I think that's it. Does anyone else have anything else before I'm going to wrap this?
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
What you doing for preseason? Well, how deep are we diving into the preseason for AU? Because I would like to be in on that as well. You know, me and Pooya got some opinions. It's time.
It's going to be a long preseason, and everyone will get a chance to talk in it. Sam is saying in the chat to keep it zippy. The chat is asking who else the deep dives are going to be. I have AJ Mountain, and I'm going to ask. And I'm gonna see where else we land with it. Again, I am going to Europe.
Get Logan.
So yeah, I want to.
Logan.
I want to get Logan. You don't have to chant. Logan. I agree. We'll see when it happens. We'll see what we get. We'll see who's available. And when I'm available, I want to do it. Thank all of you guys. Sincerely appreciate the season we had. Thank you to all the guests, the cast, the listeners, the team behind the scenes. Sam for staying up and saying, I won't be here a minute over an hour 30. He said to keep it zippy. Yet here we are, and he's still here. So he's all talk too. And we can just go as long as we want. Should we chat about? No, it's fine. We'll wrap it. Thank you all. And I will see you next time. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.